Yet we still have no accountability for how this war started. We know that most of you lily-livered members of Congress from both parties abdicated your constitutional responsibility to declare war, or not, and handed a blank check to the imperial presidency. We also know that you were lied to by George W. Bush and his people. But what I can't understand is how you believed those lies. I sure didn't. Are the members of Congress that much more stupid than we in the peace movement? Or did you really know better, but were being lapdogs for the fat cats as usual? Those of us opposing the war went from a tiny minority to a large majority of the American people. Donald Rumsfeld, long gone. The Democrats took control of Congress. And yet for months and months, you still failed to hold President Bush accountable for his lies. What on earth was wrong with you? It's a hackneyed expression, but I know you've heard it many times, but it's true. Clinton lied, nobody died. If it was okay to impeach Bill Clinton for fibbing about an event which only embarrassed his family and soiled a blue dress, what took you so long to impeach Cheney and Bush for deceiving us into a war costing so many thousands of lives? If it was right for Richard Nixon to have to resign under threat of impeachment for covering up an attempt to peek at the other party's plans, why was it not right for you to immediately get rid of all those responsible, not only for the 2 deadly wars of aggression, but also for the loss of habeas corpus, spying on American citizens, torturing suspects in the phony war on terror, saddling our grandchildren with trillions in debt, giving away our sovereignty with the North American Union, and subverting the Constitution itself? Where was the accountability? Now, much changed while George W. Bush was in office. Nearly 3,000 died on 9/11. Many more than that died in his wars and occupations. There are more than 24,000 wounded soldiers whose lives will never be the same. There are tens of thousands of young men and women with serious psychological problems because of what they have seen and what they have done. There are hundreds of thousands poisoned by depleted uranium who will suffer lives of pain and disability, and who will father thousands of children with severe birth defects. The mounting national debt comes to about $30,000 for every man, woman, and child in the country. Our military services are depleted and demoralized. The VA is still severely underfunded. The National Guard and reserves have been subjected to tour after tour, disrupting lives for even the lucky ones who return unscathed. Jobs have been lost. Marriages have been destroyed. Homes have been foreclosed. Children have been estranged. And natural disasters like Katrina have been undealt with. And still, there was no accountability. In Iraq, religious liberty was lost. Mosques, churches, and synagogues, which thrived under Saddam, have been destroyed. Women have lost their freedom. Essential services have been disrupted. People have been tortured. Cities like Fallujah lie in ruins. And in spite of heroic efforts by the vast majority of our young men and women in uniform, most of the remaining people in Iraq are worse off than they were before we liberated them. As a result, our reputation in the world has suffered, and we're the understandable target of hatred throughout the Arab and Muslim world. More than 4 years of war have destroyed Iraq, destroyed our standing in the world, destroyed our national security, destroyed our civil liberties, destroyed precious lives, and brought our nation to the brink of financial disaster. And it was all predictable, because we, in fact, predicted it. But did Bush or Cheney apologize? Did the members of his rubber-stamped Congress apologize? Have more than a few of you admitted that you were wrong and we in the peace movement were right? Of course not. The hundreds of billions of dollars spent on this war have not just vanished after all. They've gone to Condoleezza Rice's Exxon Mobil, and Dick Cheney's Halliburton, and George Bush's Carlyle Group, and through their lobbyists into the pockets of you congressional incumbents. Perhaps that's why there has been no accountability. Well, no longer. The American people have waited long enough. From all across the political spectrum, they finally got together and demanded accountability. They demanded a government which follows the Constitution, honors the truth, and serves the people. And that's exactly what we're going to give them. On behalf of the government of the United States, I would like to apologize to our men and women in the armed forces and their families. To the people of Iraq, to our allies, to all the world's people. Undoing the damage done by our war against Iraq will be impossible. We'll do what we can. We will help the Iraqis rebuild their country, their infrastructure, their society. But we can't do it as an occupying army. I'm asking the UN to send peacekeepers to Iraq. But whether they do or not, we will leave within 3 months. We're going to support what's left of our troops by bringing them home while they're still alive. Now, terrorism is a real threat. In the short term, we must protect the American people from the terrorists our misguided policies have already created. This means enhancing port security, beefing up cockpit doors, strengthening the Border Patrol and Coast Guard. These things we will do. And in the long term, we must stop making more terrorists. That means stopping policies and actions which make people fear and hate us. It means listening to the legitimate grievances of peoples we have wronged, and then changing our ways. Only one thing has ever ended a campaign of terror anywhere in the world: separating the handful of terrorists from the larger community upon which they depend. This is done by ending the feelings of desperation, hopelessness, and powerlessness afflicting the people. It is done by listening to them and then actually making their lives better. It is not done by revenge and retaliation, which only create more terrorists. In the end, we can have revenge or we can have security. We cannot have both. Now, we have at times, including I think the last few years, had a government with bad policies.